The Road to Paris. In chapter 20, we found out that Paris's mother wanted her to come visit. So let's see what happens in chapter 21, The Visit. Paris stepped down from the train at Penn Station and slowly made her way to the terminal. Why hurry? It wasn't as if she wanted to be there. She is your mother, thought Paris, feeling guilty. So what? I still don't want to see her. Paris rode the escalator up to the main hall, already longing for the return trip the following day. As soon as she reached the top, she heard her name. "Paris, over here," said Viola. "Hi, baby." Viola bent low to give her daughter a hug. Paris recoiled at her mother's touch, but feeling another wave of guilt, she allowed herself to be held for a moment before wriggling out of her mother's arms. Viola pretended not to notice. Instead, she grabbed Paris's overnight bag and said, "Let's go home." Paris coughed, choking on the word. Home? What is she talking about? She must mean her home. I don't have a home here anymore, thought Paris, especially not with her. Paris kept tight-lipped, following the familiar stranger onto one subway train, then another, and finally up the steps that led to a third-floor walk-up on 147th Street and Convent Avenue. The apartment was clean enough, with no bottles of brandy in sight, but Paris knew they could be hiding in cabinets or dresser drawers. She'd even found one behind the hamper once. Give me a few minutes, thought Paris. If there's a bottle here, I'll find it. Viola noticed Paris giving the place the once-over. I know it's small, she said, misunderstanding. Where's my brother? Asked Paris, before she even knew the question was on the tip of her tongue. Caught off guard, Viola said, "Well, honey, I don't think now is the time to—" "Where is he?" Paris almost shouted. "In a group home at St. Christopher's in Dobbs Ferry," said Viola. Dobbs Ferry. Dobbs Ferry. Paris remembered those words. She'd seen them. Where? It's a few train stops before Ossining. "I want to see him," said Paris. Viola sighed. "All right. I'll make arrangements for some time soon. But you can't see him today. Now, let me show you around." Paris nodded stiffly, then dutifully followed her mother around the one-bedroom, railroad-style apartment. A narrow hall ran the length of it, doors on the right and left opening onto a living room, bedroom, kitchen, and bath. Paris looked but didn't really see anything. All her thoughts were on Malcolm. The day marched by in a most unusual fashion. Viola took Paris out for lunch of burgers, took her shopping for new boots and sweaters, then made her a dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, her favorite. The food was delicious, and Paris liked her new clothes, but she couldn't help thinking that her mother was trying to make up for missing Christmas, or maybe even trying to buy her love. It won't work, thought Paris. I don't love you anymore. But even as she thought it, Paris knew it was a lie. She still loved her mother. She just didn't want to. Loving her meant getting hurt, and Paris had had enough of hurting. The following day, Paris slept in late and woke to the spicy smell of sausage and the sizzle of pancakes in the skillet. Over breakfast, Viola ventured a question about Ossining. "What's the house like?" At first, Paris was vague. Nice. Old but nice. "And the family?" "They're nice. I hear they have a dog." Paris smiled. "Jet. He is as big as a pony. Malcolm would like him." Viola sighed, shifting in her chair uncomfortably. She tried again. "Have you made any friends since you've been there?" Paris thought of Ashley, wondering what her friend was up to that morning. "There's one," said Paris. "Her name's Ashley. She lives down the street." What's she like? Paris thought for a moment. How would she describe her new friend? She's not like anybody, said Paris. I mean, she doesn't care what anybody thinks. She's not afraid of anything. She's different. You could tell that right away. Then Paris told her mother about the first day in class, how she'd met Ashley, and how they turned out to be neighbors. She described a Super Valentine's Day card Ashley made for her, and about the great sled race, and before Paris knew it, she and her mother were smiling and laughing together. Paris loved her mother's deep belly, let it all out laugh. She'd almost forgotten that laugh. And the music. There was always music playing in the house, and suddenly Paris realized where her own love of music came from. She'd gotten more from her mother than her eyes and nose. Paris smiled at the thought, feeling more connected to Viola than ever. Late that afternoon, Viola took Paris back to Penn Station. Viola escorted Paris onto the train, balancing her overnight case and her extra bags of new clothing. She helped Paris get settled in her seat. All aboard! It was time to say goodbye, and this time, when Viola hugged Paris, Paris hugged her back. See you soon, sweetie, she said, then rushed off the train. Paris waved to her mother through the window, a sudden flash of sadness blinding her, stinging her eyes, making them wet. Goodbye, Mommy. We're now at the end of chapter 20, and it sounds like Paris had a great time with her mother. And I can only imagine that those times were probably filled with mixed emotions. Well, let's see what happens next in chapter 21 as we continue in the road to Paris. So join me in chapter 21. We are continuing in the road to Paris, chapter 22, Homecoming. Paris returned to the welcome routine of school. She slipped into her seat beside Ashley as Miss Broadnax began taking the roll. Patty Anderson, here. Matt Brooks, here. Where were you all weekend? Ashley whispered. Ashley Corbett? Shh, said Paris. I'll tell you later. Ashley Corbett. Oh, here. Mostly. Paris grinned. That girl'll say anything. Come lunchtime, Paris had made up her mind to tell Ashley straight out. She might as well. Ashley would probably bug her to death until Paris told her anyway. I went to see my mother, my real mother, in the city. Oh, said Ashley between bites of her sandwich. So, how was it? Paris considered the best word to use. It was weird. At first, I didn't want to see her at all. Then, I was kind of glad to see her again. Then, by the time I'd left, I was sad to go, but also happy to be coming back here. It's all mixed up in my head. Ashley nodded as if she understood. Paris knew that she didn't, but she could see that her friend was trying, and that counted for something. Want some oatmeal cookies? Asked Ashley after a time. My mom packed a bunch of extras today. Sure, said Paris, happy to return to safer ground. Hand them over. Mm. Your mom makes the best cookies, said Paris, licking the crumbs from her fingers. My daddy says she's the best cook in 7 states. Where is your daddy, anyway? Asked Paris. I never met him. He's a salesman, said Ashley, always on the road. You'll meet him one of these days. Paris shrugged. It seemed like most of the daddies she knew were ghosts. Why should Ashley's daddy be any different? I'm starving here, said Paris. I need another cookie. Hurry, or I'll have to call 911. Ashley shook her head and broke the last cookie in half. Well, we're at the end of chapter 22, and as I suspected, and you probably did too, that Paris had mixed emotions about spending time with her mother. But in the end, it was a good thing. So let's find out where her journey goes next in chapter 23 in The Road to Paris.